Right, so this is changing an exhaust on a 2013 Renault Clio Mark4. However, the issue being is you get supplied with an exhaust with a flared end and a clamp. The actual system itself, don't know if you can see that on camera, is solid all the way through with no joins. So we're going to have to make a cut somewhere around about here. So easiest way to do it is to get the new exhaust in a rough original position by lining up the exhaust silencer. And as you can see, we're going to roughly end up with a join around about here somewhere. What I'm going to do is cut it here, and then we can fit this new pipe in place, get a better measurement, and then we can cut the piece of exhaust just where it needs to be cut. So what we're going to do prior to that is need to get the exhaust back box itself off, which will be the removal of this hanger here. So the easiest way to get these off, and this is probably where I've shot myself in the foot, is to get a screwdriver in here, unless you have a tool, open it up, spray a little bit of silicone grease in, and then you can force it off with a screwdriver. So we'll see if that works. I'll tell you what, it's going to be easier taking the wheel off. So there you go, now we've got the wheel off. Might be able to get into here a little bit easier now. If you want to see how to remove a wheel, you can check out my other videos. So as you can see, we can get a lot more purchase in there now. And there you go, that's that done. Right, so this is where it's going to get noisy. Now, what I would suggest is you could, if you wanted to, cut down there where I mentioned before. But if you do that, this is then going to fall down. So what I would do is, whilst you can support this, cut it up here somewhere. So you're going to need a grinder. I've got a Ryobi portable one here. But you can use any grinder, but you should need a thin cutting disc. So you might want to turn your volume down a little and wear some safety glasses. So there we have one cut on that box. Just twist that a little bit, it'll come off, it's easy. So as I said earlier, we're going to be looking at joining it somewhere around about here. So I'm just going to cut this piece off. Then what I can do is get this whole piece out of the way, put the new back box in, and then we can get a more finite measurement as to where we need. So yet again, if you want to turn your volume down. reason I've cut a little chunk like this is because you're never going to get to the top piece, and you're going to need a very bigger than 125mm cutting disc. So at least this way I can pull it down, get this chunk out of the way, and at least start cutting away at the top. You may not be able to see on camera, however, this is the area where all the leaks were happening, and there was quite a few of them, so it's just blowing through the gaps in the rust. As is usual with cutting, be very careful, these could be hot. Right, so what I've done now, just off camera, is fed this through, just because it was a bit boring, however it only took about a minute. So what we've got now is I've got the exhaust over the axle, hung on the new hanger. And when you push the exhaust into place, you can see that your cut is wanting to sit somewhere around about here because of this bulged area. This exhaust is going to slide into there, and you're going to tighten it up with this clamp. So what you now need to do, I've got a new disc just for ease. What we're going to have to do now is offer this up to there, mark up a cut somewhere prior to this piece here, and have a nice clean, as best you can, cut through there. So like I said, what we now need to do is mark it up. Now you're probably not going to see this, it's quite dark anyway under here, and I haven't got any lighting. Well, I have, but I forgot it, if I'm honest. I'm just going to mark it up with the pen. I'll be able to see where to cut, but you'll just get the gist of basically what I've done. So again, if you pop the exhaust into the rough place you need it, and we need it prior to this bulge here, because this piece is obviously the same size as this. This is the flared piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it about a 10mm gap, and I'm going to draw a line. Now I've drawn a line here, I know now that I can't go any further than that realistically, because I'll be starting to get shorter into this piece and have less to hold it onto the exhaust. However, I also know if I do any further than that, I'm going to have to cut more off. But it's the old adage of measure twice, cut once. Obviously I could cut here if I wanted and just keep taking chunks out, it wouldn't really matter, but I can't realistically go past that point. So again, safety glasses. And you guys might want to turn your volume down a little. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guard off, because that'll get in my way. I wouldn't recommend it from a health and safety point of view unless you know what you're doing and you can handle one of these. So here we go for the more final cuts. If you wanted to turn your volume down again. And there we have one nice clean straight cut to fit the exhaust too. So when you get to this stage now, what you're going to want to do is clean some of this rust off, because if you don't, it won't seal very well in here. I am going to use some what they call gum gum, or fire paste as it's called I think, but just give this a bit of a rub off and clean just to get the excess loose rust. For this you can use sandpaper. I've got some emery cloth here. The reason I've got this is because I can wrap it around in a sec. I'm just getting rid of the loosest rust I can for now. So I don't know if you can see this or not, but it's actually quite a decent exhaust. It's just more or less that surface rust that's quite solid. So once we've cleaned the surface up here, what you want to do now is get some, like I say, it's usually called gum, but this is a Holt's fire gum, and it's just a paste. What you do is you just smear it around the edge of the exhaust pipe there, push this clamp into it, and any little gaps get taken up by the gum. Once you then run the engine and the heat's in the system, it hardens the gum and it just clears up any little tiny leaks, that's all. Obviously a job you want to do with gloves on. Feels a bit like toothpaste. As I say, you don't need too much on because it should clamp it up enough with this. So what I've done is I've undone this with 213mm nuts, undone the 213mm nuts. And as you see, we can just line it up and slide it over. Now obviously don't put the hanger on because you can't get the manoeuvring off the hanger. So if we just slide it as much as we can, and then any little gaps that we can see, if we just put the gun gum into it, gives a bit of a rub around the edges, that'll push it back in where some of it might have scraped out. What we then need to do is, forget this for now, you've got that on, that's the main thing. We now need to put the hanger on. So again, whilst all the systems are loose, we've tightened up that bracket. You want to pop the hanger back in. And it should be relatively simple, just like that. So this is it now. Last thing to do is to just put the clamp on and tighten it up. Now you'll probably find it's easier to leave it hanging down to the bottom like that, but it's just simply a case of putting it where the cut is, which is towards the edge of the exhaust, because that's the bit that's going to move. Putting it on here won't make any difference whatsoever. You need it where the cut is, because then it can compress the two ends that have got the split in it. That's the whole purpose of it. And try and tighten it up evenly if you can. And I don't know if you can see on camera or not, but we are getting some of the paste squeezed out on the edges here. So that just shows that it is clamping it together. And you don't need this extension on the way I'm doing it. I'm just doing that so you can see what's happening for the camera. and then we have it one exhaust fitted.